International Day of the Girl Child is celebrated on the 11th of October and is dedicated to the growth of girls around the world. The theme this year is the digital generation, and the day focuses on the rights, safety, and education of girls. For a quick conversation on this message of this year's commemoration and what interventions are being made to address the worsening plight of the girl child, from Abuja, we are joined by Ulla Elisabeth Mueller, who is a United Nations Population Fund country representative in Nigeria, and here in our studio, Chisom Ogbummuo, the founder and executive director of the Conversation Cafe. Welcome and good afternoon, ladies. So the conversation for this year...
Thank you very much for having us.
Yes, good afternoon. The conversation this year, the theme for this year is centered around technology. And I just wanted you all to, first of all, describe how important this day is for the girl child and why this year's theme is quite important as well.
Okay, thank you very much. And once again, thank you very much for taking time out and inviting me to join this conversation today. So the digital revolution, I think, is what we have seen over the last couple of years happening all over the world, and also during COVID-19 and the lockdown. And this is one of the key avenues for the girl child to get access to information. It is what we see is where we all get our knowledge, and it's critical also in learning situations. And it's important that we ensure that girls have equal access to digital solutions. We also know that many more boys has access to their own handsets and phones, for instance, than girls have. And therefore we need to also strive for equality so girls have equal access. It is critical for their educational attainment. It's critical for their opportunities to make their own choices and to seek the information they want to seek, to ensure that they can actually become equals and remain equals because they're born equals. Digital revolution is important, but I do want to just take a small little opportunity here and say, just remember in Nigeria, vast areas of this country is not covered properly by the mobile network. There's 2 free 2G, which really means that a lot of girls and young people in general do not have access to the digital revolution. So it's important we think about how do we ensure that we have a network that reaches every corner of this country so that no one is left behind. And also, how do we ensure that girls have access, that they're not deprived of their rights to information so they can make decisions about their own lives.
All right, Ulla, thank you for that. Chisom is here in the studio with us as well. Chisom, as a Nigerian, we know that the girl child has undergone quite a bit this year, or every year. We know there have been mass kidnappings of school children in the north, access to health care, the COVID-19 pandemic, so many issues. Today of all days is the day we're supposed to reflect on that. But do you feel like it's just enough for one day for the myriad of issues that our girl children are facing in Nigeria especially?
No. So I don't think it's enough for us to have just one day to spread the word. Personally, I'm always speaking about advocating, engaging, informing, and enlightening as much as possible every day, one day at a time. So I always say one day at a time. So it could be today, it could be tomorrow, it could be for the rest of your life, you know. And most importantly, with all that you have mentioned, some people are not in the knot where the kidnappings are happening. There's always a girl child somewhere that you can help. There's always someone in your environment, in your immediate environment that you can help. But I'm very gladdened that today is a day that, you know, celebrates the girl child internationally. That way it gives more people access to information they do not know that the girl child is facing. And then they also have access to, you know, engaging and helping in becoming better and creating a more sustainable and safe environment for the girl child.
All right, let me turn the attention back to Ulla in Abuja. And Ulla, I would like to find out from you, talk to us about the girl child in the 21st century, focusing on probably the Nigerian girl child. Has the gap in terms of equity and equality, has it Is it closer than it used to be? And what are some of the challenges that a 21st century girl child still faces?
You know, I will start with the gap. I wish I could say that it has shortened, but unfortunately, what we have seen in globally during the COVID pandemic is actually that it has increased. In Nigeria, Nigeria is one of the most unequal countries in the world, and during COVID, we really saw that inequality really sharpened. We know when it comes to healthcare, for instance, that 89% of Nigerian women do not feel that they're empowered to make their own decisions about access to healthcare. And that trickles down to the girl child. And it is an issue because Nigeria loses out, the world loses out when girls do not have equal access to all the benefits that comes with being just a human being in this world. And another issue that is also deeply concerning in Nigeria is, of course, the high degree of child marriage. Very often when crisis hits, what we see is those numbers also increases. That contributes to widening the inequality gap. And that also means that many girls are deprived education. They will not have access to their own handset, for instance. So even in a digital time and age, they will not be able to follow suit. And that means they automatically end up in a disadvantaged position. And that's also why this day is so important, because it is an opportunity to raise awareness about the challenges. But there's a long way to equality. Globally, what we know from the annual report that comes out, there's a gender gap analysis that comes out from the World Economic Forum every year, that at the pace we have now, it's going to take us more than 100 years to reach equality. And Nigeria will take even longer. So we do have to make an effort, and we have to make some conscientious decisions about how we get there. And this opportunity today is also to reach out to all the decision makers, to the politicians, to the government, to the states, but also to every single citizen in this country, and say, take a good look at your sister or your daughter. How can you ensure that they develop their full potential, that they become everything that they want to be? Because we all have a role to play in creating equality, and we do need to close the gap. We are not on the right track, but we are working very hard to get us back post-COVID on the right trajectory.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that, Ulla. You were talking about very conscientious decisions on behalf of those in higher powers and in politics and government. What are some of those decisions that they should be thinking about and marinating on in order to alleviate the suffering that is happening for a lot of these girl children in the country?
So the first one, I would say in Nigeria, and some of you who are listening in today might have heard me say that before, is let the girl child be a child, not a bride. Let her finish her education. Let her get access to the same knowledge and opportunities as everyone else. So as a parent, make that choice. Make the choice to say, my daughter is going to finish her education. And then when she is ready herself to get married, she'll get married and she will still have her family, but she'll have to make her own choices. Let her be a child. I think that's the first decision. And I think the next decision is also for, everyone in the private sector, for instance. Companies, business leaders, corporate managers, make a decision, a conscientious decision about saying, I want equality at all levels of my organization. Go and look for the qualified girls and women out there, because they are there, but you do need to find them. You do need to look for them. Yeah. So it starts really with ourselves making those decisions. Community leaders make the decision to say, we walk away today from child marriages. For decision makers to say, girls have to finish secondary education. It's mandatory education. You have to do secondary education. And make sure the girls stay in there and enforce it. Invest in the enforcement of the policies. Nigeria do have the policies, but they need to be enforced. So make that decision, but it starts with letting the girl child be a child and not a bride.
Awesome.
All right,
Thanks, Ulla.
let's bring the conversation to Chisom here, and
Yes.
let's talk about internet penetration here in Nigeria. It's about 70%, but the girl child seems not to be benefiting from the fact that there is a massive rollout and access to internet is even growing wider and wider. What can we do to actually bridge this gap and ensure that the girl child has the access to that particular gateway?
Okay, so first and foremost, we need to create a more conducive environment for them to thrive in all capacities. And by what I mean is by educating them. It's of no use if they have access to the internet and they do not even know what to use the internet for. They do not know what to search for. They do not know what they're exactly doing. So I would start with saying that we need to do better by teaching them, basic things and then creating access to these opportunities for them. How many low-income communities have, public spaces where they can come in and, access basic information and do researches? We don't have access to that. How many people are happy, donating or giving of their time and their resources to engaging these girls on what they can do with the internet? For me personally, when we speak about the team, digital generation, our generation, it's not necessarily only for them to have access to the internet. It's what are they using it to do? How is that going to be useful to their well-being and, to their future as they keep going? And so for me, I'm going to step out of line in terms of the question you asked, and I'm going to say, can we create an environment where we can now start to engage them? We can now start to prefer access to these things for them so they know that they have it, not just for a limited time, but it's there to guide them, it's there to help them, and it's there.
Whose responsibility is that? Who should shoulder this responsibility?
Well, I'm going to say everyone, but I'll start off with the government because, if you're a citizen of the government, it's your fundamental human rights to have access to basic things, right? And at this age and time, the internet is one of those things. So I would definitely start with the government. In low-income communities, while they build, the high things that are seemingly irrelevant at the moment, they can factor in creating environment and spaces where they can access the internet and other resources in relation to that. But beyond that as well, everyone has a role to play. You have a role to play. It could be part of your CSR. It could be part of your It could be part of your CSR. It could be part of your contribution towards creating something elevating for them in your particular community. Other people as well, such as international organizations who are focused on subject matters around this, can also take part in creating that. And for one of the projects that we're working on, which is called Project HA, this is coming up from HA, the movie that we created and the work that we do at the Sanitary Bank. We're creating an initiative where multinationals, brands, organizations, everyone and anyone really interested in making sure that the girl child is enabled and informed to participate. So anybody who is interested can sign up for Project HA in any capacity. If you want to teach music and you're not in Nigeria, sign up. We would create platforms. So if we have people donate laptops, we have people provide internet, we have other people who are willing to teach certain subjects to them. That also helps them get elevated one way or the other. So that's one of the things we're doing for our new project called Project HA.
All right. So it's very clearly mentorship is one of the stronger points in order to get the girl child on board. I know the United Nations is working on quite a few projects. Individually, you've spoken about some things that Nigerians can do on their own. But can you talk to us, Chisom, more about the organization you work for? I know you mentioned something about sanitary products, which is also, the physical health of the girl child. That's another topic that is quite large and important to discuss. So can you tell us what your organization does?
Thank you. So the Conversation Cafe is a safe space. It's an initiative where we prefer alternative education and we do impactful activities for social impact and development. And majorly, we have focused on the girl child in developing countries, especially in Nigeria. So we run a sanitary bank where we provide sanitary products, sanitary pads, and healthcare kit, femcare kits for girls in low-income communities. We always make sure that whatever it is we're doing is sustainable for them, at least for the period of 3 to 6 months. So we have adopted communities such as the Ogbummuo community in Takwa Bay and a few others. And even for this month, we also have schools that we visit and communities that we visit where we distribute the sanitary care kits of 3 to 6 months. We produced the movie titled Her. Her is a short movie that spotlights on different issues from healthcare to education concerning teenage girls, and that's what we've done. And then the project Her that I spoke to you about earlier.
All right, let me bring in Ulla, who is in our Abuja studio. Ulla, let's talk about the girl child and what some would describe as a double whammy. Of course, the COVID-19 brought up quite a lot of challenges, and then insurgency has also heightened some of these challenges that we are seeing again. We're looking at over 1 million children out of school right now. And the question I would like to throw out to you is, how do we help these girls? How do we get to a point whereby we can get as many as we can back to school?
Stand up for the girl. I think that is the shortest possible answer to that question. I think it is very much about understanding what is our own roles as citizens, as parents, as siblings, is really stand up for the girls and also engage with the governments, because education is a human right. Every child have a right to quality education. And it starts with education, and we all know that, right? So we have to hold our governments, our state actors, parents accountable to ensure that the girls also go back to schools, not only the boys, that the girls is also sent back to school. So parents, show up at the school with your daughters. COVID is over, and I think there's a piece also about safer schools. And I also know UN in Nigeria is working on a project whereby we are engaging with state governments in the affected states on how do we keep a school safe? How do we prevent insurgents from coming in and kidnapping young girls? Because also the minute there's a kidnapping, is also then there's a lot of other human rights that is violated. There's the right to freedom, it's the right to bodily autonomy, it's the right to choose your own spouse. There's a series of human rights violation that comes into that. So working very closely with the communities also on how do we keep schools safe. So there is a project actually called Building Safer Schools. So that's where it starts, but it's also about holding governments accountable. And also just saying no, stand up for your daughter. I think it is, I cannot underpin that enough, because also when we talk about what my colleague was just mentioning about the projects and getting them access to internet, that only works if they can read and write. And too many girl children in this country that are not literate because they drop out of school. And it is sadly a very unsafe environment, and we do need to, and we are also supporting both at federal and state level government on how we can make a more secure environment and really providing support to that. But in UNFPA, it's really about keeping that education in and making sure that the girls do not get married off, that they do not have an early pregnancy, that they actually have all of those opportunities. But it is really a joint responsibility. Everyone has a role to play. But show up. Take your daughter to school and insist that she is educated. And let's work on keeping schools safer and making sure that the girl child's right is equally recognized to that of the boy child. Because that is actually also very much where it starts. Yeah. So there's no easy solutions, and I am the first one to understand that. But it starts with showing up and taking your child back to school.
Everyone does sincerely have a role to play in the protection of the lives and the advancement of the girl child. Ulla, thank you so much for having this discussion with me. Chisom as well, having this discussion with us.